Can I throw an occupation out there?
Sure.
Furniture rental consultant, clerk, or whatever it is.
Consultant. Okay. Furniture rental consultant is a counter and rental clerk occupation. And we're not going to like the numbers. 77,000 jobs. But if we throw in, because if you can do the full range of light work, you're not disabled if you're under 55. So we throw in occasional contact with others for counter and rental clerks, and we go down to 0.
Yeah, that's the one that they usually that usually comes up with the furniture rental clerk. I think is the handling.
Or the
Is
sit
the,
stand option.
yeah, I get that too, but it's more like the handling. I think is I think it's only occasional if I'm not mistaken.
All right. So in the SCO, how is handling defined? Anybody? Russell, can you tell us how handling is defined?
Yeah, it's using the hands to manipulate, and the fingers are involved to the extent that they're an extension of the hand.
All right. So you cannot handle without using your fingers. So I want to change the vocational, I want to change the question just slightly, Madam, Mr. Vocational Expert. I want you to assume that the person can only occasionally use their fingers during an 8-hour day. Can they still do this job? Fine manipulation is divided into not manipulation is now divided into three categories, not two. The first one is fine manipulation. Fine manipulation is required in almost all jobs. It's one-handed in 40% of jobs. It's required in both hands in almost 60% of jobs. 2023 data set. Seldom, occasional, frequent, very little, constantly, almost none. Keyboarding is now separated from fine manipulation, and it's required in 89% of jobs. And it's required occasionally in 61% of jobs, and frequently in 19% of jobs. And gross manipulation is required in almost all jobs, and it's required with both hands in 86% of jobs, and occasionally in 57 and frequently in 42. So you're the vocational expert. You tell me, how do I combine the three different data points to come up with a conclusion that all of these jobs require no more than occasional use of the fingers?
Can we ask the vocational expert, in your experience, do people need to use their fingers when they're handling?
Yeah, I want you to pick up your phone without using your fingers. Go ahead. I want you to pick up your coffee cup without using your fingers.
We have to make the distinction though that it's obviously different than how the DOT defines fingering.
Correct. It is different.
Right. I'm just saying you have to make that distinction clear, obviously.
And you have to disassemble the ALJ's question of occasional handling and fingering. I want you to assume that it's occasional combined handling and fingering. Can they still do this job since it's occasional and occasional? It is possible for two occasionals to still be occasional if they're both 15, 16, 17, not 17, both 16% or less, or you have a 20 and a 10. It is possible for two occasionals to equal occasional, but it is impossible for two frequents to not reach constant. Because the bottom marker for frequent is 34%. And 34 plus 34 is 68, and 68 is the bottom of the definition of constant. So if a person is limited to frequent handling and fingering, and they're combined, and the DOT says frequent on both, then you're into the constant range. And if you have frequent handling and occasional fingering, you might be into the constant range, but you have to ask. you have to ask. You have to, and on something like this where the data does not give us a clear answer, then we have to set it up in such a way that we can ask and get a meaningful answer. There are some things that I don't know. And I don't know anything. All I know is I know how to read. I can tell you what the data says. But if 80% of the jobs require occasional fingering and 60%, 61%, 62% require occasional keyboarding, and 57%, the majority of jobs require occasional gross manipulation. How often are these people actually using their hands? Because it would be very difficult for an occasional, an occasional, and an occasional to not add up to frequent. So with respect to, if you get furniture rental consultant, you really want to use your first line of attack is in fact our friends at Job Browser Pro, because we're going to get very low job numbers now that they fixed some of their nonsense. You get 2,220. That's my first attack for furniture rental consultant. None of these jobs are performed the way the DOT envisions them, because the DOT was last updated. 10,000 of the 13,000 occupations were last updated when I was in high school. When some of you were in grade school. I mean, 6th grade or less. Some of you weren't even born or thought of when this
Wasn't even thought of.
wasn't even thought of, not even imagined.
No.
Larry, what about making a pivot table and submitting it to the judge after the hearing with an explanation of how we came to have to support that pivot table?
I think you're better off submitting the calculator and submitting the ONET trimmed down to cognitive and mental. Or if you have an environmental case where there's pulmonary irritants, you can use the ONET for that. But I prefer to use the ORS for environmental limitations. The environmental limitations, exposed to heights. So very few jobs are exposed to heights. Heights is a non-limitation. Outdoors, a lot of jobs are outdoors. That's important to know. And we're looking at, this is counter and rental clerks. Moving mechanical parts, nothing. Hazards, not exposed. So I basically restrict my use of the ONET to cognitive.
Oh.
I avoid physical demands because it's not agency, it's not policy compliant, but I do use the cognitive. I use it all the time. So I told, when I did the presentation in Chicago, I told the people in the audience that you have to embrace the data. You have to absorb the data. I've been having an affair with the data for a long time. And I know the data. I know my data very well. And if you don't know what data is there, you're not going to know how to cross-examine. So open up your favorite ORS report, and it doesn't really matter which one it is.